Chapter 97. I can't slack off, nor can I be satisfied with this. There are still many places in the palace that I haven't signed in yet. Su Qin gathered his thoughts and thought silently in his heart. Although with his strength, it wouldn't take long for him to walk around the palace. He only had one chance to sign in every day. He needed to do it one by one. Calculating the time. It will take about half a year to sign in every place in the palace. Su Qin estimated in his heart. On this day, Su Yueyun asked Su Qin to have dinner with her and Crown Prince Li Sheng. Su Qin didn't refuse. Anyway, today's sign-in opportunity had been used up, and he had nothing to do for the time being. So, Su Qin came to Cheng'en Hall. Cheng'en Hall is the place where the Crown Prince lives in the East Palace. When Su Qin arrived, Crown Prince Li Sheng and Su Yueyun had been waiting for a long time. Third brother, come here quickly. Crown Prince Li Sheng waved at Su Qin. He didn't have the dignity of a crown prince at all when facing Su Qin. Instead, he was very amiable, as if he was a real relative. Third brother, how have you been in the palace recently? Can you get used to it? After Su Qin sat down, Su Yueyun asked with concern. Although everything in the palace was good, it was too oppressive and cold. This was also the reason why Su Sengho and Su Chenyu would rather join the army. For some people who like to be lively, working in the palace is tantamount to being in prison. That was why Su Yueyun asked this question. How have you been? Su Qin quickly flashed through his mind. Innate spirit liquid, longevity secret, white jade true body, star traction, and many other treasures. Finally, he nodded and said seriously, very good. Third brother, just get used to it. Crown Prince Li Sheng nodded slightly and said with a smile, I was just talking to Yun Yang, third brother. Can you adapt to the palace? At this point, Crown Prince Li Sheng patted his head and hurriedly said, Third brother, hurry up and eat. Today's meal was meticulously prepared by the palace's imperial chef. You can't eat it normally. Crown Prince Li Sheng immediately introduced them. Su Qin didn't have any requirements for this. Ever since he had attained the fruit of Arhat, he had long reached the realm of immortality as a qi eater. He did not need to replenish his energy through food. However, not needing to eat did not mean that Su Qin could not eat. At this moment, a palace maid walked in hurriedly. Your Highness, His Majesty is here. As soon as he said this, Crown Prince Li Sheng's expression changed slightly. Imperial Father is here? Crown Prince Li Sheng was just about to get up to greet him. The Emperor of Tang had already strode in and waved his hand directly. No need to salute, I'm just here to take a look. As you wish. Crown Prince Li Sheng hurriedly gave his seat to the Emperor of Tang and sat on the side. This little brother is? The Emperor of Tang turned his gaze and looked at Su Qin. Crown Prince Li Sheng immediately replied, Your Majesty, he is Yun's third brother. He has only recently returned to Chang. I haven't seen him before. It turns out to be someone from the family Su. The Emperor of Tang nodded and did not ask much. However, when Su Qin looked at the Emperor of Tang, his brows wrinkled. Because Su Qin clearly felt that the Emperor of Tang's body had long been depleted to the extreme. Logically speaking, even if he was a martial artist in the upper realm, he should be dead. Is it him? Su Qin glanced at a purple-clothed eunuch standing beside the Emperor of Tang. With Su Qin's eyesight, he naturally saw that this eunuch was a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster. Moreover, he was a peak Grade 1 Great Grandmaster whose body and divine sense had both transformed. Unfortunately, Su Qin just glanced at the purple-clothed eunuch and did not look at him anymore. Although this purple-clothed eunuch has completed the transformation of his body and divine sense, but because of his incomplete body, he will not be able to achieve the transformation of his body for the rest of his life. If the Demon Lord or Daoist Zhang had a slight possibility of entering Grade 1 Great Perfection, then this purple-clothed eunuch has completely cut off this hope. Life-linking secret technique? Su Qin opened Eyes of Truth, and instantly understood why the Emperor of Tang was still alive even though his body was so depleted. With the Emperor of Tang's body, he should have died long ago, but he was pulled back by the purple-clothed eunuch with a secret technique called life-linking secret technique. In other words, The Emperor of Tang was not consuming his own vitality at this moment, but the vitality of the purple-clothed eunuch. In a way, the longer the Emperor of Tang lives, the less Shouyuan the purple-clothed eunuch has left. Perceiving this, Su Qin looked at the purple-clothed eunuch with a higher degree of respect. Even if it is a close relative, there are very few people who can exchange their life for another's. What's more, with the strength of the purple-clothed eunuch, no one can force him to use this secret technique. But it's meaningless. Su Qin shook his head slightly. This life-linking secret technique is extremely complicated and consumes a lot of energy. For every year that the Emperor of Tang lives, the purple-clothed eunuch's vitality will be consumed for 3 to 5 years. Moreover, Su Qin could see that even if the purple-clothed eunuch was willing to use his own vitality to help the Emperor of Tang prolong his life. But at this moment, the Emperor of Tang will not live for long. Just as Su Qin was thinking, the Emperor of Tang has sat down. Not bad, Xing, your wine is rare. The Emperor of Tang's eyes suddenly lit up and was about to take a sip. Your Majesty, take care of your body. Crown Prince Li Sheng was anxious and immediately advised. Take care of my body? Is my body not good? The Emperor of Tang put down the wine cup, frowned, and looked at Su Qin, who was sitting silently. You are Yun's third brother. Tell me, how is my body? Su Qin looked up at the Emperor of Tang, nodded and then shook his head. What do you mean? The Emperor of Tang asked with interest. Do you really want to know? Su Qin said casually. Of course. The Emperor of Tang nodded. Su Qin was silent for a while and said, I don't have long to live. As soon as these words came out, the whole Chang'an hall suddenly fell into a dead silence. Even Crown Prince Li Sheng also opened his eyes wide and looked at Su Qin in disbelief. He never thought that Su Qin would dare to say such words in front of the Emperor. Your Majesty, he just didn't mean. Crown Prince Li Sheng was about to plead for Su Qin. At this moment, haha. The Emperor of Tang suddenly laughed. Interesting. It's really interesting. A trace of ridicule appeared on the Emperor of Tang's face. I didn't expect that the words that all the civil and military officials dared not say would be said by a young man. The Emperor of Tang laughed for a while, coughed a few times, and his mood was obviously a little depressed. The Emperor of Tang's voice just fell. Your Majesty. A little eunuch came up and stood respectfully on the side. Courage to speak, reward. The Emperor of Tang took a deep look at Su Qin, got up and left Chang'an Hall. As you wish. The little eunuch bowed slightly and left Chang'an Hall. Soon after, he returned and said loudly, His Majesty's decree, reward 100 taels of gold and a piece of jade pendant. Crown Prince Li Sheng and Su Yueyun looked at each other and didn't react for a long time. Chapter 98. In Chang'an Hall. Crown Prince Li Sheng blinked. Originally, when Su Qin said that the Emperor of Tang was dying, he was ready to welcome His Majesty's anger. But the result? After all, His Majesty was not angry, and instead gave a reward? This. Crown Prince Li Sheng only felt extremely incredulous. Third brother, what's the matter with you? Su Yueyun barely broke free from the shock. What you just said about His Majesty, is it true? I stayed in the Shaolin Temple for so long and learned some medical skills. Su Qin casually found a reason. From the Emperor of Tang's complexion, he is indeed dying. When Su Yueyun heard this, he subconsciously looked at Crown Prince Li Sheng, and a huge wave was set off in his heart. So much so that Su Yueyun and Crown Prince Li Sheng did not notice that Su Qin called His Majesty the Emperor of Tang, not His Majesty. His Majesty is the title of a subordinate to a superior, and it implies submission. But the Emperor of Tang, it was a kind of equal, and even meant that he did not care at all. After coming out of Chang'an Hall, Su Qin walked slowly on the road of the Imperial Palace. The Emperor of Tang is a bit interesting. Su Qin thought of the 100 taels of gold and the jade pendant that the Emperor of Tang rewarded him. But he's still dying. Su Qin shook his head slightly and did not pay attention to it. Even if there is a peak grade 1 great grandmaster to prolong the Emperor of Tang's life at all costs, it is useless. Next, Su Qin once again resumed his life of the past month. The imperial palace is quiet, and Su Qin is backed by the crown prince. As long as he does not take the initiative to cause trouble, almost no one dares to trouble him. Late at night, the full moon hung high in the sky. Long before I left the Shaolin Temple, I was already at the peak of the third heaven. The reason why I have suppressed my breakthrough until today is because I feel that there is a great risk in advancing from the third layer to the fourth layer. Su Qin sat cross-legged as he thought to himself. Arhat's breakthrough from the third heaven to the fourth heaven involved some kind of qualitative change. It was not as simple as the breakthrough from the first heaven to the second heaven or the second heaven to the third heaven. Let's wait a little longer and see if I can get the 9-in Sutra. Su Qin slowly got up and walked out of the pavilion. He looked up at the sky. When he was at level 9, Su Qin tempered his body with the Vajra unbreakable force and the Taiyin body refining technique. With the power of Yang and the power of Yin, his body transformed to a new level. It even made Su Qin and Shouyuan soar. Now, Su Qin has entered the realm of Arhat. Before he breaks through to the fourth heaven, he wants to do it again according to what he did when he was at level 9. However, for the current Su Qin, the Vajra unbreakable force and the Taiyin body refining technique have long lost their effect. I'm afraid that only the combination of the 9 powers of the 9-yang divine force and the 9 powers of the 9-yin sutra will be useful. Unfortunately, as for the 9-yang divine art, Su Qin had already obtained it from signing in at the Shaolin Temple. But the 9-yin sutra, no hurry. Take it slow. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated. Although the current martial arts doesn't have to walk the path of yin and yang coexistence, Su Qin noticed through the eyes of truth that he is most suitable for the coexistence of yin and yang. Pure infinite yang or infinite taiyin may not have any problems in a short time, but the later the cultivation, the hidden dangers will gradually be revealed. At that time, there will be no turning back. By the way, today's sign-in opportunity has been refreshed. Where was the place I signed in last time? Su Qin took a step and disappeared. When Su Qin appeared again, he was already standing in front of a huge temple. The ancestral temple of the Empire of Tang? Su Qin's eyes were calm as he slowly walked in. Su Qin seemed to notice something, and his eyes instantly focused on an old man guarding the entrance of the ancestral temple. The old man's hair and beard were white, and he stood there trembling as if he would be blown away by the wind at any time. The ancestral temple was huge, but only this old man was guarding it. I didn't expect the Empire of Tang to have so much heritage. Su Qin glanced at the old man with a thoughtful expression. This old man may be hiding from everyone in the palace, even the peak grade 1 eunuch in purple clothes. But in Su Qin's eyes, he directly discovered the other party's details. Impressively, he is also a peak grade 1 great grandmaster. However, for Su Qin, not to mention a peak grade 1 great grandmaster, even a grade 1 great perfection is nothing. Let's sign in at the ancestral temple first. Su Qin took a step forward and directly entered the ancestral temple. The light in the ancestral temple is extremely dim, but every corner is clean and tidy. Obviously, someone comes to clean every day. System, sign in. Su Qin said in his heart. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. Obtained the Emperor-level world suppression art. A mechanical and cold voice sounded in Su Qin's ears. Emperor-level world suppression art? Su Qin raised his eyebrows. The next moment, everything about the Emperor-level world suppression art poured into Su Qin's mind. The Emperor-level world suppression art is an Emperor-level divine art. When cultivated to the extreme, one can enter the legend realm. It is said that the founder of the Empire of Tang cultivated the Emperor-level world suppression art and finally unified the world. With the help of the country's luck, he stepped into an incredible realm in one fell swoop and finally crossed the sea in search of the longevity opportunity. Although it is of no use to me, but the concept can be used for reference. Su Qin carefully comprehended for a while, his thoughts fluctuating. At Su Qin's realm, he is no longer limited to a single Dao. Instead, he integrates hundreds of Daos and walks his own path. Not bad. It's a very interesting cultivation technique. Su Qin slightly nodded and made an evaluation of the Emperor-level world suppression art. The Empire of Tang's founder. Su Qin's gaze turned and looked at the highest place of the ancestral temple, the wooden tablet that belonged to the Empire of Tang's founder. Although the founder of the Empire of Tang finally crossed the sea and his life or death is unknown, the emperors of Tang still worship the founder here. I'm borrowing your place to tell you something. Su Qin's mind moved, and a stick of sandalwood flew over and fell into the incense burner. Buzz. The sandalwood incense burned without wind, and smoke rose into the air. It's time to go back. Su Qin's figure disappeared. Half an hour later, the old man guarding outside the ancestral temple wobbled into the ancestral temple. Founder, you've been gone for 500 years, the old man sighed softly, picked up a stick of sandalwood, and with a pious expression, prepared to put it into the incense burner to worship the founder. This was what he did every day. For 60 years, ever since he guarded the ancestral temple, he had never stopped. However, the next moment, he was stunned. Although there was no change in the incense burner in front of him, the old man could still smell a trace of burning sandalwood. This trace of smell was very faint and almost undetectable. Even normal people would subconsciously ignore it. But in the old man's eyes, it was no different from a bolt from the blue. In an instant, the old man's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his bent waist was instantly straightened. Someone has been here? The old man suddenly raised his head and looked around. Extreme shock flashed in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 99. Someone has been here? Inside the ancestral temple, the old man's heart was in turmoil. The world only knew that the purple-robed eunuch Zhao in the palace of the Emperor of Tang was a peak rank one. But in fact, other than eunuch Zhao, he, the temple keeper who had guarded the ancestral temple of the Empire of Tang for decades, was also a peak rank one. The Empire of Tang had been established for more than 500 years, and its founder was a martial arts legend. Although he eventually crossed the sea and no one knew whether he was alive or dead, the Empire of Tang's foundation was still unfathomable. On the surface, eunuch Zhao was in charge of everything, but in the dark, the temple keeper watched coldly from the sidelines. However, the fact that the temple keeper was a peak rank one was related to the foundation of the Empire of Tang. Even the Emperor of Tang did not know. Not only that, but the temple keeper was different from eunuch Zhao. Eunuch Zhao was loyal to the Emperor of Tang. For the Emperor of Tang, he was willing to give up his life. But the temple keeper was different. The temple keeper was not loyal to the Emperor of Tang, but to the Empire of Tang. As long as the Empire of Tang still existed, and the person sitting on the throne was surnamed Li, the temple keeper would not appear. Impossible. Who in the palace can sneak into the ancestral temple without being noticed? The temple keeper's scalp went numb as he stared at the incense burner in front of him. He had been guarding outside the ancestral temple and did not notice anyone sneaking in. But now, he smelled a wisp of sandalwood on the incense burner in the ancestral temple. What did this mean? This meant that someone had walked into the ancestral temple in front of him and put a piece of sandalwood on it openly? How was this possible? One had to know that he was a peak rank one. With him standing guard outside, even if an ant crawled in, he would know like the back of his hand. But someone had sneaked in and put a piece of sandalwood on it. Despite such a huge commotion, the temple keeper, who was close at hand, was unaware of it. If not for the lingering smell of sandalwood, he might not even know that someone had snuck in today. Could it be a grade 1 great perfection? The temple keeper's thoughts raced, but in the end he shook his head and denied this idea. The strength of a grade 1 great perfection is certainly higher than that of a peak grade 1. However, the temple keeper is a peak grade 1 who has transformed twice. Even if he is not as strong as a grade 1 great perfection, it is unrealistic to say that a grade 1 great perfection can treat the ancestral temple as nothing in front of him. Things have gotten troublesome. A true dragon has come to the palace, the temple keeper murmured. Although he did not know who had infiltrated the ancestral temple, he could vaguely sense that the other party did not have any ill intentions. After all, in the eyes of the guardian of the temple, unless the great ancestor who crossed the sea 500 years ago returned, the entire palace of the Emperor of Tang would be at the mercy of the other party. However, in reality, the Emperor of Tang's palace was still the same as before. Right Spring Square. Su Qin's figure appeared silently. Right. After lighting the sandalwood just now, I ignored it. If the peak grade 1 temple keeper returns to the ancestral temple at this time, maybe he will notice something? Su Qin touched his chin, and in the blink of an eye, he was too lazy to think about it. For Su Qin, even if the temple keeper really found out that someone had entered the ancestral temple, so what? With his trivial peak grade 1 strength, it is impossible to find Su Qin by following that aura. However, with the innate spirit liquid, there is no need to rearrange the grand array. Su Qin thought silently. The main function of the essence-gathering Holy Land Array is to gather the world's essence chi within a few miles to achieve the effect of improving the cultivation speed. But now, after obtaining the innate spirit liquid, Su Qin does not need the world's essence chi at all. All the consumption during cultivation can be provided by the innate spirit liquid. As a treasure born in heaven and earth, the innate spirit liquid is pure in nature. There is no need for Su Qin to refine it. It can be absorbed by him naturally. Just in terms of cultivation quality, the innate spirit liquid is far superior to the world's essence chi. Of course, what Su Qin doesn't care about is the essence-gathering Holy Land Array that gathers tens of miles. If one day, Su Qin can arrange the essence-gathering Holy Land Array that gathers the world's essence-gathering Holy Land Array that covers thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, or even the entire continent, then it will be a different story. Quantitative change leads to qualitative change. If the world's essence chi within tens of thousands of miles is really gathered in one place, then the terrifying effect is definitely not worse than the innate spirit liquid, or even better. In the following time, Su Qin spent most of his time signing in at the Imperial Palace. Occasionally, he would be called by his little sister, Su Yuyun, to eat the meals carefully prepared by the imperial chef. Sometimes, he would also run into the Emperor of Tang. Ever since Su Qin's shocking words last time, the Emperor of Tang obviously thought more highly of Su Qin and often asked some questions. Su Qin was a little impatient with this and usually just casually said a few words to muddle through it. He came to the Emperor of Tang's palace to sign in, not to answer the Emperor of Tang's questions. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. In these 2 months, Su Qin has signed in at least half of the Emperor of Tang's palace and gained a lot. On this day, Su Qin was walking slowly in the imperial palace. With the identity of a counselor and the brother-in-law of Crown Prince Li Sheng, Su Qin can basically go in and out of the Eastern Palace. Even outside the Eastern Palace, as long as he doesn't get close to some important places of the Imperial Palace, he won't be questioned. Just as Su Qin was thinking about where to sign in today, suddenly, a group of people walked over quickly. From the clothes of these people, it was obvious that they weren't from the Empire of Tang, and there were eunuchs from the Imperial Palace leading the way. In addition to the eunuchs, there was also a small team of the Imperial Palace's Forbidden Army following them. They seemed to be protecting this group of people, but in fact, they were secretly monitoring this group of people. Nanming diplomatic mission? Su Qin glanced at them casually and found the words on the clothes of this group of people, and he roughly confirmed their identity. In this world, many countries existed side by side. Among them, the Empire of Tang was the most prosperous, occupying the vast central plains. And the area south of the Empire of Tang, near the sea, was ruled by Nanming. This generation of Ming Emperor was a man of great talent and vision, and he was in the prime of his life. Since he ascended the throne, he had purged the imperial palace and gathered power. Now that 20 years had passed, the entire Nanming was like an iron bucket, and it was a thorn in the side of the Empire of Tang. In addition, Ming Emperor also established the Genie Guard organization to investigate the various countries and collect information from the world. Even the Meng Yuan Empire, which occupied the endless grasslands in the north, had spies from the Genie Guard. However, even if the various countries were at daggers drawn, and the rulers of each country couldn't wait to kill each other the next day, they still had to maintain the basic face. Every once in a while, The Empire of Tang and Nanming would have diplomatic missions. The main purpose of these diplomatic missions was to maintain the relationship between the two countries, or to pass some information. Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated, and his divine sense swept through. Su Qin seemed to have found something, and his eyes fell on the group of Nanming diplomatic mission again, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Chapter 100. Interesting. Su Qin's gaze faintly swept over several people in the Nanming diplomatic mission. These people were very inconspicuous, and their heads were slightly lowered, as if they were afraid of offending a certain noble in the imperial palace. But only Su Qin noticed that these people vaguely revealed a trace of killing intent. This killing intent was extremely hidden and hidden deep in their hearts. Even a peak grade 1 great grandmaster like Eunuch Zhao may not be able to detect it. But unfortunately, this group of people met Su Qin. Venerable Arhat's divine sense is meticulous. Although it is not as good as Buddhism's divine sense, this group of people wanting to hide from Su Qin is tantamount to wishful thinking. Killing intent? They are still hiding their strength? This group of people from the Nanming diplomatic mission came to the Emperor of Tang's palace for other purposes? Su Qin's eyes were thoughtful. It is impossible for the Ming Emperor not to know that these people have sneaked into the Nanming diplomatic mission. All of this was ordered by the Ming Emperor. In other words, the Ming Emperor may be preparing to attack the Empire of Tang? In fact, it is not wrong for the Ming Emperor to have such a plan. Now that the Emperor of Tang is in his old age, although he has appointed a crown prince, all the princes have different thoughts. The situation is chaotic. If the Ming Emperor does not take advantage of this opportunity to take action, he would be a hero of a generation. The battle between two countries is not open and aboveboard. The winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. These people are preparing to assassinate the Emperor of Tang? Su Qin guessed in his heart, but he does not think that this possibility is very high. The Emperor of Tang is always guarded by Eunuch Zhao. These assassins have hidden killing intent. If they do not take action, Eunuch Zhao may not find out. But once they are ready to take action, they will leak their aura. With the ability of a peak grade 1 great grandmaster, these people will probably die in an instant. It was impossible to pose any threat to the Emperor of Tang. If the Emperor of Tang could be assassinated so easily, he would have died a long time ago. With Ming Emperor's methods, it was impossible for him to be so shallow and crude. But what does this have to do with me? Even if there were really assassins from Nanming causing trouble in the palace, as long as it doesn't affect the Eastern Palace, it has nothing to do with me. No matter how chaotic it is outside, I just need to sign in on time. Su Qin pondered for a while, then stopped thinking about it. How could the Emperor of Tang's palace not be able to deal with a few foreign assassins? When Su Qin returned to the right spring square, he found that a palace made from the East Palace had been waiting outside for a long time. Young Master Su, His Highness wants you to go to Qin Hall. The palace maid bowed slightly to Su Qin and said in a low voice. Got it. Su Qin looked at the sky and probably knew that Crown Prince Li Xing wanted to invite him to taste the meal carefully prepared by the imperial chefs. So, Su Qin came to Qin Hall. Sure enough, the table was already filled with fragrant delicacies. Third brother, sit down quickly. Crown Prince Li Xing smiled at Su Qin. After they ate for a while, Su Qin looked at Su Yueyun and asked casually, after so many years, you haven't given birth to any children? When Su Qin said this, Su Yueyun's face changed. Crown Prince Li Sheng, who was eating happily, also had a dim look in his eyes. Third brother, I'm not in good health. The imperial doctors have seen me many times, but they can't do anything. After a long time, Su Yueyun opened her mouth and said. In fact, Su Yueyun had not given birth to any children for so many years, which had long caused dissatisfaction among the court officials. There were even officials who came forward to impeach her. The imperial family valued the continuation of children the most. If Su Yueyun, as the crown princess, did not have the ability to give birth to children, it would even affect the stability of the crown prince's position. If the Emperor of Tang had not suppressed it, this matter would have been blown out of proportion. Yun, don't worry, there will definitely be a way. Crown Prince Li Sheng looked at Su Yueyun and could not help but comfort her. Su Yueyun heard this and shook her head slightly. A way? If there was a way, how could it have been delayed until now? Over the years, who knew how many imperial doctors had seen Su Yueyun? Even the personal imperial doctor of the Emperor of Tang had personally checked Su Yueyun and finally concluded that the yin qi had entered her body too deeply and there was no way to reverse the situation. Fortunately, the imperial doctor was only loyal to the Emperor of Tang and did not spread this matter around. If you believe me, you can let me take a look. Su Qin glanced at Crown Prince Li Sheng and Su Yueyun's expressions and said casually, "Let third brother take a look?" Su Yueyun's face was full of doubts. Although he trusted Su Qin very much, what was the use of Su Qin taking a look when even so many imperial doctors had no clue? "Yun, take a look at third brother." At the side, Crown Prince Li Sheng seemed to have thought of something and immediately urged. He suddenly remembered that some time ago, Su Qin had only taken a glance at the Emperor of Tang's conclusion that he did not have long to live. Although he did not know whether Su Qin's words were true or not, at least the Emperor of Tang did not blame him at that time. Okay, Su Yueyun nodded. Su Qin put his hand on Su Yueyun's pulse. In fact, he had already used his divine sense to scan Su Yueyun's body inch by inch. The reason why he still needed to check the pulse was nothing more than to further confirm. Yin qi has entered the body. Su Qin put down his hand and shook his head. As soon as these words came out, Su Yueyun's eyes were obviously disappointed. Crown Prince Li Sheng next to him also sighed softly in his heart. He remembered very clearly that the Emperor of Tang's personal imperial doctor also said the same thing. Then the next sentence was powerless to reverse the situation. However, the next moment, Su Qin said lightly, "It's a small problem." After signing in at the Shaolin Temple for almost 30 years, in addition to countless secret manuals, Su Qin also obtained many medical books. In a way, Su Qin's medical skills at the moment were definitely not inferior to any imperial doctor in the world. Even compared to those imperial doctors, Su Qin could use his divine sense to completely heal the most minute parts. Therefore, for other imperial doctors, Su Yueyun's yin qi had entered the body and was powerless to reverse the situation, but in the eyes of Su Qin, it was just a small problem. What? As soon as Su Qin's voice fell, Crown Prince Li Sheng suddenly opened his eyes wide and almost thought that he had heard wrongly. "Third brother, what did you just say?" Su Yueyun also couldn't believe it and looked at Su Qin in disbelief. "I said I can cure it." Su Qin paused for a moment and continued, "Give me a pen and paper." "Someone, quickly bring the pen and paper." Crown Prince Li Sheng immediately stood up and quickly said to the eunuch who was waiting next to him. The eunuch hurriedly left. Soon after, he brought the pen and paper and respectfully placed it in front of Su Qin. Su Qin casually wrote a dozen herbs to form a prescription and then put the pen aside. Boil the soup according to the herbs on the prescription and drink a bowl in the morning and a bowl in the evening every day for 30 days. Su Qin said lightly. In fact, this prescription was just on the surface. When Su Qin checked Su Yueyun's pulse just now, he used his true essence to remove most of the yin qi in his body. If it weren't for the fact that Su Yueyun's body couldn't bear it, Su Qin could completely cure it on the spot instead of using this prescription to slowly remove the remaining yin qi. Chapter 101. This prescription. Su Yueyun muttered to herself as she picked up the prescription with trembling hands. If she was still skeptical of Su Qin's words at the beginning, then now, as Su Qin wrote down the prescription, Su Yueyun believed most of it. Although Su Yueyun and Su Qin haven't seen each other for almost 30 years, but just by getting along with each other during this time, Su Yueyun knows that Su Qin isn't the kind of person who likes to talk big. Since Su Qin said so, he must be very confident. "Third brother, thank you." Crown Prince Li Sheng's eyes were a little red. If possible, who didn't want to have a descendant? "It's okay. It's just a small matter." Su Qin waved his hand and said casually. Helping Su Yueyun get rid of the yin qi was really nothing for Su Qin. It was as simple as eating and drinking. "I'll go back first." Su Qin got up and walked out of the hall. Crown Prince Li Xing immediately followed and only stopped to return after sending Su Qin out of the right spring square. Shenzhen Hall. Crown Prince Li Xing hurried back. Yun, have you passed down the prescription? Crown Prince Li Xing asked anxiously as soon as he saw Su Yueyun. It's already been done. Su Qin's Yueyun was obviously a little nervous. She looked at Crown Prince Li Xing expectantly and said, "Will it work this time?" "It'll definitely work." Crown Prince Li Xing nodded seriously. At the same time, in a mansion somewhere in Xianxia City, a middle-aged man in a white robe sipped his tea and looked in the direction of the palace. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, a chubby man who looked like a rich merchant carefully walked in and stopped not far from the white-robed man. "Greetings, Lord Town Guardian." The chubby merchant had a cautious look on his face, as if the white-robed man in front of him was some kind of wild beast. If an intelligence officer of the Tang dynasty was here, he would be shocked to hear the words, "Guardian Envoy." This was because the Guardian was a high-ranking official of the Nanming Embroidered Uniform Guard, second only to the commander. Even in the entire Embroidered Uniform Guard organization, there were only 3 guardians. Each of them had a high position and power, causing the court officials to tremble in fear. Logically speaking, it was impossible for a person like the town councilor to take the risk and enter the empire of Tang alone, let alone sneak into Xianxia City. If the town governor fell into the hands of the empire of Tang, Nanming would not only lose a town governor, but also countless intelligence agencies and even the spy network that Nanming had set up in the empire of Tang. With the status of the town governor in the Embroidered Uniform Guard, if he casually revealed anything, it would be enough to cause the entire Nanming to suffer heavy losses. "Get up." The white-robed man's eyes didn't even lift as he spoke in an indifferent tone. "Yes." The chubby businessman stood respectfully to the side. After a moment, the white-robed man suddenly asked, "How's it going?" "Your Excellency, our people have already mixed in with the diplomatic corps and entered the palace." The chubby businessman immediately said. The white-robed man nodded slightly and said indifferently. In his eyes, sneaking into the palace was just the first step. He didn't need to pay too much attention to it. "Your Excellency, may I ask if His Majesty's target this time is the Emperor of Tang?" The chubby businessman saw that the white-robed man was in a good mood and asked cautiously. In his view, for the Southern Ming Empire to let the white-robed man, a town envoy, personally take such a risk, they must have a big plan. And in the entire imperial palace, there was nothing more beneficial than assassinating the Tang Emperor. Once the Emperor of Tang died, the Empire of Tang would be in chaos. At that time, Nanming could take advantage of the situation and march all the way north to Xianxia City. Thinking of this, the chubby businessman's eyes flashed with a trace of heat. If things were to develop according to this trend, they would be able to establish an everlasting merit. For so many years, Nanming had been suppressed in the south by the Empire of Tang and couldn't expand to the north. If they took this opportunity to open the door to the Empire of Tang, with the current Ming Emperor's great talent and great strategy, they might be able to sweep across the world and unify the world. Assassinate the Emperor of Tang? The white-robed man glanced at the chubby businessman and said, "With the protection of the purple-robed eunuch, the Emperor of Tang won't die." Speaking of this, the white-robed man shook his head slightly. For so many years, although Nanming and the Tang dynasty often had diplomatic relations on the surface, no one knew how many times they had fought in secret. Naturally, they knew how terrible the purple-robed eunuch was. The chubby businessman was slightly stunned. After thinking for a while, he asked tentatively, "Are you going to assassinate those princes?" Except for the Emperor of Tang and the princes, the chubby businessman couldn't think of anyone who was worth the visit of the guardian of the brocade guards. "Princes?" The white-robed man smiled and said, "His Majesty can't wait for those princes to bite each other. How can he bear to let them die? You don't have to guess. The target of the brocade guards this time is the Crown Prince." The white-robed man took another sip of tea and said lightly, "The Crown Prince?" The chubby businessman was slightly stunned. As far as he knew, The current crown prince of the Empire of Tang was established by the Emperor of Tang despite the opposition of many ministers. He had no foundation in Chang'an City. The chubby businessman even suspected that the crown prince was deliberately promoted by the Emperor of Tang as a means to deceive others. You don't understand. The white-robed man's tone was calm. His Majesty knows the Emperor of Tang too well. This old fox won't do anything meaningless. Also, the brocade guards found a more interesting piece of information. 30 years ago, the Emperor of Tang met a palace maid. A year later, they gave birth to a son. However, the Empress was jealous at that time, and the palace maid died not long after the child was born. At that time, the court was unstable. The Emperor of Tang needed the power of the aristocratic families behind the Empress, so he could only send the palace maid's child to the common people. Not long ago, a son of the royal family who returned from the common people was made the crown prince. The white-robed man looked at the chubby businessman, and a trace of deep meaning appeared on his face. Don't you think it's a coincidence? What do you mean, Guardian? The chubby businessman's thoughts turned quickly, and he asked subconsciously. The death of the crown prince is not only a blow to the Emperor of Tang, but also stimulates the other princes. Because the mountain above them is gone, they can fight each other legitimately again. And this is the scene that His Majesty likes to see the most. The white-robed man said slowly, in a few days, the crown prince and the crown princess will leave the palace through the Black Tortoise Gate and go to the family Su. Your people can take action before then. Remember, you must not let the crown prince reach the Black Tortoise Gate alive. The white-robed man said. Whether it was the East Palace or the Black Tortoise Gate, there were a large number of palace guards. But between the East Palace and the Black Tortoise Gate, there was an empty area. The palace's defensive forces couldn't be said to be without, but they were definitely the least. It was also the place where they had the highest chance of succeeding in the assassination. And once the crown prince walked out of the Black Tortoise Gate, he would definitely be protected by the Forbidden Army. In that case, they would have no chance. The chubby merchant bowed and said, in front of the Weiyang Palace. Su Qin stopped and looked up at the palace in front of him. This should be the first time I signed in here. Su Qin thought for a moment, and a smile appeared on his face. Su Qin said in his heart, System, sign in. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully. You have received the Sunflower Manual. Chapter 102. Sunflower Treasure Book? Su Qin's thoughts fluctuated, and his expression was quite helpless. As early as when he was living in the Shaolin Temple, Su Qin had heard of the Sunflower Treasure Book. In fact, in other aspects, the Sunflower Treasure Book is definitely above the vast majority of martial arts in Jianghu. But if you want to cultivate the Sunflower Treasure Book, there is a prerequisite. If you want to cultivate this art, you must castrate yourself first. Moreover, the biggest hidden danger of cultivating the Sunflower Treasure Book is that because the body is incomplete, it is impossible to complete the transformation of the body. The purple-clothed eunuch beside the Emperor of Tang was like this. Of course, even with such a big flaw, the Sunflower Treasure Book is still worthy of the name of evil art. After all, how many martial artists in the world can touch the transformation of the body of a peak grade 1 great grandmaster? Instead of worrying about this, it's better to master powerful strength first. It's a pity, I wasted a sign-in opportunity. Su Qin shook his head slightly, feeling a little regretful in his heart. According to one sign-in opportunity per day, Su Qin still has more than 970 years of Shouyuan, and he can sign in a total of less than 400,000 times. Every time he uses it, he will have one less chance. However, although I can't use the Sunflower Treasure Book, it has some merits regarding the operation of Yin internal force. What kind of insight does Su Qin have? With his current realm, who knows how much higher than the founder of the Sunflower Treasure Book? With just a casual glance, he could perceive the true merits of the Sunflower Treasure Book. Not bad, not bad. It's not like I didn't gain anything. Su Qin nodded slightly and prepared to return to the right spring square. In the next few days, Su Qin basically comprehended the golden Buddha that symbolized the complete inheritance of Buddha's palm. Moonlight shone. Su Qin sat cross-legged. Buddha's palm has a total of 9 styles. Now I can only comprehend one style. As for the other 8, I can't comprehend them for the time being. Su Qin rubbed his eyebrows and thought silently in his heart. In fact, Su Qin was also aware that the golden body of Buddha in the primal aperture at midbrows would not impart to him the remaining 8 clans. With Su Qin's current strength, withstanding one move of the Buddha's palm was already his limit. As for more, it was basically impossible. It was like a bottle that could only hold 1 bowl of water, but if you wanted it to hold 10 or 100 bowls of water, the only result would be that the bowl would explode. There's no rush. Take your time. Anyway, what I have the most is time. Su Qin was not greedy. Now that he had mastered so many unique skills, even if he couldn't comprehend the Buddha's palm, he could comprehend others. Besides, even if there was only one move of the Buddha's palm, it would be enough for Su Qin to comprehend for a long time. However, the Empire of Tang is worthy of being a powerful country. In addition to the 2 great grandmasters in the Imperial Palace, there are so many Grade 1 great grandmasters. Su Qin turned his gaze and looked at the Emperor of Tang Palace. During this time, while he was signing in, he also swept through the heritage of the Emperor of Tang Palace. In the Emperor of Tang Palace, there are 23 Grade 1 great grandmasters. What kind of terrifying number was this? It must be known that any Grade 1 great grandmaster can establish a great sect and move unhindered in a region. But the Emperor of Tang Palace actually has 23 of them? And this is just the number of Grade 1 great grandmasters in the Imperial Palace. In the border army of the Tang dynasty, there must be other Grade 1 great grandmasters guarding it. Conservatively speaking, the Empire of Tang has no less than 30 Grade 1 great grandmasters, and may even be close to 40. It's just that Su Qin thought about it and felt that it was normal. Perhaps Grade 1 great grandmasters are very rare in the whole world, but if all the Grade 1 great grandmasters in the world are gathered together, the number will be very considerable. The Empire of Tang occupies the vast and rich Central Plains and has countless cultivation resources and people. It is easy to cultivate some martial Dao powerhouses. Of course, even if the Empire of Tang is so powerful, its limit is to cultivate some Grade 1 great grandmasters. As for the peak Grade 1 and even venerable Arhat and legends, it is impossible to cultivate them. The next day, Crown Prince Li Sheng asked Su Qin if he wanted to leave the Imperial Palace with them and return to the Su residence. Su Qin thought for a while and nodded in agreement. He hasn't gone back for a while, and now is the right time to take a look. After a while, Su Qin let Crown Prince Li Sheng and Su Yueyun meet up. Su Yueyun's complexion was obviously much better. Obviously, Su Qin's prescription was effective. After chatting for a while, they walked out of the East Palace and prepared to go to the Black Tortoise Gate. When leaving the Imperial Palace, Su Qin suddenly stopped and looked at the Nanming diplomatic mission coming towards him. "Third brother, what's wrong with you?" "They are Nanming's diplomatic mission." Su Yueyun thought that Su Qin was curious and explained. However, before Su Yueyun could finish, the group of Nanming diplomatic mission that was slowly walking towards them suddenly exploded. Kill! In an instant, a bone-chilling killing intent spread out and shrouded them. Not good. There are assassins. Crown Prince Li Sheng was shocked and instinctively stood in front of Su Yueyun. Protect the Crown Prince. Protect the Crown Prince. At this time, some of the confidants that Crown Prince Li Sheng has trained over the years reacted and surrounded the Crown Prince and Su Yueyun. Can't even withstand a single blow. A cold-looking man in the Nanming diplomatic mission unsheathed his long saber. With a flash of the saber, many of the Crown Prince's confidants fell to the ground. We have to hurry. A sense of urgency suddenly rose in the cold-looking man's heart. Although this was an unguarded area of the Imperial Palace, they had made such a big commotion that a large number of Forbidden Army would arrive in at most 5 seconds. In other words, they had to kill the Crown Prince in 5 seconds at the latest. Otherwise, if a large number of Forbidden Army arrived, killing the Crown Prince would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. As for what would happen after 5 seconds, for all the Nanming assassins present, since they dared to assassinate the imperial palace, they did not expect to return alive. Die! The cold-looking man's saber flashed and slashed at Crown Prince Li Sheng from afar. Your Highness, run! At this time, one of the Crown Prince's confidants rushed over and pushed him down, barely dodging the saber. However, the Crown Prince dodging the saber did not mean that the saber had disappeared. The dazzling saber flashed and disappeared, slashing at a figure behind the Crown Prince. The cold-looking man frowned and looked at the spot where the saber flashed and saw a man standing there quietly. It's him? The cold-looking man recognized him immediately. As an assassin, before the assassination, he had already memorized all the information about Crown Prince Li Sheng. This man with Crown Prince Li Sheng should be Crown Princess Su Yueyun's third brother. Su Qin. Fine. I'll kill you first, then the Crown Prince. There's still time. The cold-looking man's eyes flashed with madness, and the saber flashed brighter and faster. Die! The cold-looking man looked at Su Qin as if he was looking at a dead man. However, just as the cold-looking man was about to kill Su Qin and immediately attack Crown Prince Li Sheng, Su Qin, who had been standing there motionlessly, raised his head slightly and looked at the cold-looking man. The cold-looking man subconsciously looked at Su Qin. However, when he looked around, he felt as if he had arrived at a dark void. This is? The cold-looking man's expression froze, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. All he saw was dreamy and deep, as if there was a dark vortex spinning slowly. At the end of his vision, the cold-looking man saw 9 suns in the sky. At first, the 9 suns were extremely far away, but in an instant, they expanded and burned fiercely. Finally, they burned the void and swallowed everything. Chapter 103. The Emperor of Tang's Palace. The Crown Prince was assassinated. The originally harmless Nanming diplomatic mission suddenly erupted, and a chilling killing intent filled every inch of the air. Almost in an instant, the vice-commander of the Forbidden Army guarding the Black Tortoise Gate suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the Crown Prince's location. The vice-commander is a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster and is responsible for guarding the Imperial City. He is extremely sensitive to auras, let alone this kind of killing intent. Not good. There is a problem with the Crown Prince. The vice-commander of the Forbidden Army's expression was extremely ugly. Although the Crown Prince was some distance away from the Black Tortoise Gate at this moment, if something really happened to the Crown Prince, His Majesty will hold him accountable. The life and death of the Crown Prince is related to the foundation of the Empire of Tang. At that time, even if he is a Grade 1 Great Grandmaster, he will inevitably be punished. Send some people and come with me. The vice-commander of the Forbidden Army took a step forward, his whole person turned into a phantom, and rushed towards the place where the killing intent emerged. The vice-commander of the Forbidden Army's reaction speed was already very fast. When he noticed the killing intent, it took him a moment. When he moved, it took him another moment. Then from the Black Tortoise Gate to the Crown Prince's location, it took him 3 seconds. From the beginning of the assassination to the arrival of the vice-commander of the Forbidden Army, only 5 seconds passed. What can you do in 5 seconds? For ordinary people, blinking a few times is equivalent to a dozen seconds. However, for the vice-commander of the Forbidden Army, these 5 seconds felt like years, and he was burning with anxiety. The vice-commander of the Forbidden Army was very clear that to be able to assassinate the Crown Prince in the Emperor of Tang's palace, there must be a very careful plan. If there is no certain certainty, these assassins hidden in the Imperial Palace will not take action. Since they took action, it means that these assassins feel that the assassination will succeed. Your Highness the Crown Prince, I hope you can hold on until I get there. The vice-commander of the Forbidden Army's thoughts turned quickly, and the internal strength in his body almost boiled. The next moment, the vice-commander of the Forbidden Army rushed over and was about to take action to suppress the assassins. He saw a scene that he would never forget. The assassins, who had been brimming with killing intent, shuddered. Then, their bodies began to burn. Before they could even scream, they were reduced to ashes. This is... The deputy commander of the Forbidden Army trembled in shock. Before he had rushed over, he had thought of countless possibilities. He had even considered the possibility that the crown prince had died at the hands of the assassins. But the only thing he didn't expect was the scene in front of him. It would be understandable if these assassins were smashed into meat paste or chopped in half. However, for them to spontaneously combust and turn into ashes was beyond the imagination of the Forbidden Army's vice-commander. Crown Prince Li Sheng and his confidants were also stunned. A moment ago, they were facing a life-and-death crisis, and could have died at the hands of these assassins at any time. But now, such an unbelievable scene was happening. At this moment, large numbers of the Forbidden Army began to arrive. The deputy commander of the Forbidden Army suppressed the shock in his heart and shouted, "Protect His Highness the Crown Prince." No matter what happened, the safety of the Crown Prince had to be the top priority. "Third brother, are you okay?" Su Yueyun barely recovered from her shock. She tugged at Su Qin's arm and asked in a low voice, "I'm fine." Su Qin shook his head and glanced at the ashes left behind by the assassins. Long before the Nanming diplomatic mission entered the palace, he had already discovered that these Nanming diplomatic mission had other plans. However, at that time, Su Qin felt that as long as these assassins didn't affect the Eastern Palace, or him and his little sister, the Crown Prince, he couldn't be bothered to intervene. In the entire palace of the Emperor of Tang, Su Qin only knew a few people, including Su Yueyun and Li Sheng. As for the others, Su Qin didn't care about the lives of the princes and eunuchs. But what Su Qin didn't expect was that the target of these assassins was actually Crown Prince Li Sheng. Ming Emperor, Su Qin's expression didn't change. Deep in his eyes, he was deep in thought. "Third brother, it's okay. It's all over now." Su Yueyun thought that Su Qin was scared out of his wits and hurriedly comforted him. Nanming diplomatic mission? Damn it. At this time, the deputy commander of the Forbidden Army had a rough idea of what had happened. He knew that these assassins who suddenly attacked were from the Nanming diplomatic mission. "Your Highness, I will personally escort you back to the Eastern Palace." The deputy commander of the Forbidden Army bowed to Crown Prince Li Sheng. Crown Prince Li Sheng was also feeling uneasy. He was not in the mood to leave the palace. He immediately returned to the Eastern Palace with Su Yueyun, Su Qin, and the others. The Eastern Palace was where the Crown Prince lived. It was usually patrolled by large numbers of the Forbidden Army. It was impossible for assassins to use the identity of a diplomatic mission to assassinate him. It could even be said that no diplomatic mission from any country could even enter the Eastern Palace, let alone assassinate him. A moment later, in the Immortal Palace, the Emperor of Tang listened to the report of the deputy commander of the Forbidden Army. His expression was impassive. The Immortal Palace was the bedroom of the Emperor of Tang for generations. It meant longevity and longevity. "I understand. You may leave." The Emperor of Tang waved his hand and said softly, "As you wish." The deputy commander of the Forbidden Army breathed a sigh of relief. Although the Crown Prince was not dead and the assassins were all killed, the matter seemed to have been resolved satisfactorily. But such a big mistake had occurred in the Imperial Palace, openly allowing assassins from other countries to assassinate the Crown Prince. As the deputy commander of the Forbidden Army guarding the Xuanwu Gate, he had to bear some responsibility. And now, the Emperor of Tang had asked him to leave. Obviously, he was too lazy to pursue the matter. After the deputy commander of the Forbidden Army left, the Emperor of Tang's face gradually darkened. "Ming Emperor, how dare you? Do you really think I don't dare to fall out with you?" A trace of anger appeared on the Emperor of Tang's face. "Your Majesty, please don't be angry." Eunuch Zhao, dressed in purple, walked out and bowed. The assassination of the Crown Prince is a matter of great importance. At this moment in Chang'an City, there must be someone important enough in Nanming to command the overall situation. Now that the assassination has failed, the news has not been leaked yet. "Why don't we take the opportunity to capture that person?" Eunuch Zhao said slowly. "That's right." The Emperor of Tang was silent for a moment, then nodded slightly. If they could capture a big shot in Nanming, It might have a great impact on the war between the Empire of Tang and Nanming. Leave this matter to me. As long as the person is still in Chang and city, he will not be able to escape. Eunuch Xiao paused, then continued, Isn't your majesty curious about who saved His Royal Highness the Crown Prince? According to the deputy commander of the Forbidden Army, when he arrived, the assassins were burned to ashes. Obviously, before he arrived, someone had already made a move. The person who made the move was able to quietly burn all the assassins to ashes. His strength is probably beyond that of an ordinary grade 1 great grandmaster. Even if he is not as good as Eunuch Xiao, he is not far behind. Curious? The Emperor of Tang heard this, shook his head, and said lightly, Everyone has secrets. My son has grown up. It is normal for him to have his own secrets. Why should I be curious? To read the unedited content, please go to Vinegar Literature and Learning. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.